We are still going to be identifying subject, predicates, prepositional phrases as part of our writing. This is kind of a grammatical exercise. We haven't really gotten into writing our own sentences using subject, predicate, prepositional phrases, but you'll be amazed at how much of the sentence, of a complete sentence, is part of these very two things. So go through and try and do this as carefully as possible. Look at the patterns and try and identify those subject and predicates and prepositional phrases. Some sentences are a little bit harder than others. If you have a kind of a hard time doing it, then skip that one and go to an easier one. Always do the easier ones first and then come back to the little bit more difficult ones. We are going to, in the future, be writing our own sentences, and it's important to know how to write a complete sentence, and just knowing these two things is a big help. So here's our subject, predicate, and prepositional phrases. Okay, this is, we're mapping sentences. These are all complete sentences. They start with capitals and with periods. They aren't phrases. Phrases can just be words put together that have a partial amount in a sentence, but it's not a complete sentence. Let's read these directions again. Map the prepositional phrase in each sentence first. Okay, that's key. We want to map their prepositional phrases first because we've learned that first. Then separate the sentence's subject predicate parts with a division line. Okay, we're going to use this division line between them. The subject part is another noun. The subject part, okay, for the subject predicate is a noun. It is the person or thing doing the action. The predicate part is the verb, which comes after the subject, and all the words after that. Perfect. The subject predicate parts divide the sentence into two parts. Every complete sentence has a subject predicate part. So when you're writing a sentence and you don't have a subject predicate part, then it's not a sentence. I don't know what it would be. It could be something that doesn't make any sense, or it could be close to what you think might be a complete sentence, but you have to have a subject and predicate part, which is the subject and verb part. The preposition, maybe you have it and maybe you don't. A lot of sentences have prepositions in it, but you can't have a sentence without it. So let's go ahead and look at number one. I'll try and get the hardest ones here out of the way so you can have some samples. Actually, one looks pretty easy. Let's go to some of these longer ones here. Let's do 14 at the bottom here. Let's start with 14. These are called complex sentences. The longer the sentence is, the more complex it is. It gets a little bit more abstract. It says more in one sentence than just a short sentence. Let's go ahead and read number 14. The sun sinks behind the mountains towards the end of the day. Toward the end of the day. Okay. So if you have your prepositional sheet with you, which you should from last week, I don't want to keep on giving you new ones. Keep that one handy. Behind, you would find as a preposition. And toward, you would find as a preposition, and of you would find of a preposition. Behind, toward, and of are all prepositions. Now you have to find the noun that goes with it. Behind the mountains. We aren't going to add this to it because it stops right here because a new preposition starts with toward. Behind the mountains. What do you think is going to be the noun there? If you said mountains, you're correct. So this is one prepositional phrase, not the whole sentence, just the preposition part. Let's look at this one. Toward the end. What would you think would be the noun in that sentence? Or that phrase? End is right. You can almost guess that because a new preposition starts here, so this one would have to end before the new one starts. And of and day is the other noun over here. So here we have three prepositional phrases in one sentence. Now, None of these are going to be the subject yet that I know of. We may come across something like that, but for this worksheet they aren't. Over here, what's left, the sun sinks. Which one of these do you think is a noun? If you said sun, you're correct, because we see the sun every day. And sinks would be the verb, and we divide our sentence between the subject and verb part. So this one would be complete. Let me take one more. Let's take number 6, because it shows, I forgot what this called, but it's giving us, in our introduction sentences or introduction part of our narratives, it always tells us the time. Nightly, okay, this tells us that this is going to happen at night. Nightly, the woman looks through her telescope. Okay, well, nightly isn't a preposition. We're looking at our prepositional phrases first. If you look through your list, you're going to find out that through is part of that. So after this, there's going to be a noun, and it would be telescope. Her is a telescope also. Her is a telescope. Her is a noun also, and proper, but it's going to be used as an adjective in whose telescope? Her telescope. So that's a little tricky. You're going to have, every once in a while, you're going to have some adjectives in between your preposition and your noun. You have to include those. So these prepositional phrases could be 4 or 5 words before you get down here to the noun, and you have to circle all those. So just kind of be aware of that. You can't guess at these very well. You have to read them closely. Okay, let's look what's left. Nightly, the woman looks, and we can just kind of cover this up for now. That gives us the time. The woman looks. Which one of these do you think is a noun and which one do you think is a verb? If you said woman, that's true, because we can see women. And if she's looking, that's the verb. That's the action part that she's doing. We divide the sentence between woman and looks, the noun and the verb part of that sentence. So here's some samples for you. You can copy the samples. This one just had one prepositional phrase. You have your list of prepositions. Find your prepositions first, okay? And then find the noun that goes with that, and then look for your subject-predicate part in your sentences. You can see that for a sentence down here, it makes up almost the whole sentence. This would be what's considered a complex sentence. Hopefully you'll be able to recognize these well enough that later on you'll be able to write complex sentences on your own. This is, go ahead and put up here, week 19. And again, if these are too difficult, because you have a shorter period of time, just do a few at a time and have someone check your answers and then come back and do the rest.